actually fill them out here. And for everyone else, I can send you the link to do it online. So I'll just give you a really quick background to the study. So this project is to learn more about kind of what contributes to both satisfaction and dissatisfaction with family quality of life. And the goal of this project is to make targeted recommendations based on our findings about how services can be better matched based on families' unique needs. So how can we kind of boost family quality of life? And I'm going to actually just turn it over to the panel now. So each will introduce themselves and then speak a little bit about their own perspective on family quality of life and kind of how they've helped to face and help families face these issues. And like Grace said, you know, this is a jumping off point for you to think of questions and you know, ideas you'd like to share. So thanks so much.
Hi, my name is Jo. I never speak in these things. I'm with the Vancouver Infant Development Program, which is a program that works with children from 0 to 3 with all sorts of developmental challenges, disabilities, and such. And I also work with a small group of private behavior consulting for children with autism. Is this volume okay? Sorry. So in terms of transitions, I wasn't 100% sure what I would talk about today, other than the transitions that I see for families are right from infants and toddlers who are developing in atypical fashions, who are not even yet being exposed to the term autism, haven't thought that they were going to go on and go through full assessments through Sunny Hill or private. So I work with that group. I work with the transition after diagnoses and looking for consultants. I work with transitions into preschools, and in fact, I'm old enough to have been around before there was a supported child development program, and when we actually sat in meeting after meeting with the ministry trying to hang on to the contracted spots that were available for specialized preschools. And then also now I'm working with kids that enter kindergarten as well as, you know, beyond that. So in terms of quality of life, I think really it's about supporting families to make decisions based on research for sure, best practices for sure, but also fit between programs, families, cultural traditions. I mean, it's endless, so that's pretty much basically where I come from.
Hi, my name is Michelle Otten, and I'm the parent of a 21-year-old young man with autism. I'm here actually representing the ABA Support Network as well today, which is a grassroots organization run by parents. We are ABA focused, but we also provide a lot of support and advocating for families. I've personally worked as a behavior interventionist for 15 years, both in home programs and in schools. And I think sort of what I bring this afternoon is hopefully information for parents on how to facilitate transitions from preschool to school when your children leave home, because I've been through that, and just there's a lot of transitions when you're raising a child with autism, even when your other kids leave home, or challenges within your entire family and support. And I hope I can answer anybody's questions this afternoon. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Tamara Kulusic, and I'm echoing to me. Am I okay to others? Because I know I don't like hearing myself twice. I know my husband doesn't like hearing me twice, so I'm assuming you wouldn't either. I'll get used to it in a minute. So I'm the provincial manager for an agency called Community Living BC, and we fund supports and services for adults with developmental or intellectual disabilities. As well, in 2010, we introduced an expansion of the program, or government introduced an expansion of the program to extend eligibility to adults who were particularly vulnerable, had really significant challenges in adaptive functioning, challenges with daily living, and also diagnosis of either an autism spectrum disorder or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And as the provincial manager there, actually even before I talk a little bit about that, I'm just going to take a moment to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm also a parent, and I have a son in his late 20s who lives with autism, and so as a family member had lots of experience navigating the system and lots of interest in transition in particular. And I've been at Community Living BC for the past 7 years, since just after it was created. I originally joined the team as the manager of child and family supports, and I'm now the manager responsible for all our service delivery policy. So how we figure out eligibility, how we do planning, how levels of support and service are allocated to individuals. I had the particular pleasure of working with a number of other people on the development of our youth transition policy, which has been an important piece of work we've done as an organization. And at that point in time, we also worked with cross-ministry partners to develop a protocol for supporting youth transitions in this province. And there's a number of different government ministries and agencies that have signed on, which include places like Ministry of Child and Family Development. And I did bring along a couple of things for you guys to have a look at today. So I brought a copy of just a 2-page document that has been considered a fairly important piece of work. It is outlining sort of a time frame for doing some planning for youth and their families, and it talks about the roles and responsibilities of all the different government partners, etc. And then I did bring a couple of other materials that are more specific to Community Living BC, and put those on a table at the back. I think the matrix was handed out for you. And for families who are in the process of planning, this can often be helpful. It really does focus on the overarching domains for quality of life. How do we consider things like material well-being or financial well-being and physical well-being, and how do we access supports to do the things that we want to do in our lives, ongoing learning and work, etc. So that's there for you, and then a couple of other information sheets about CLBC in particular. And what I'm really hoping to bring to the conversation today is both some of my experiential knowledge as a family member myself navigating the system, but also a little bit of information about the ways in which an organization like ours is assisting individuals and their families when they're accessing our services.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm a coach, mentor, translator, and all other labels and hats for my son who's 19 and is on the spectrum. Transitions every day, every breath, practically. And while I was trying to figure out what to say for my intro this morning, I came across a little, how you want to say, an English paragraph that my son had to write when he was doing that transition from elementary school into high school. So this was his first day of school at high school, and his impression of what his first day of high school was that I wanted to share with you guys. So it is titled, of course, My First Day of High School. September 4th, 2007, a silver Toyota 4Runner pulls up outside of Delta Secondary School. A friendly-looking 12-year-old delicately steps out, followed by his father, and they yank the bike out of the back of the truck. The kid reaches into the back seat and pulls out his book bag and helmet. He's trembling. A bunch of kids standing around him glance at him, and they quickly turn and head for the doors. The father and the son walk the bike up to the large bike rack outside the doors and lock up the bike. The boy says his goodbyes to his dad once they've locked up the bike. They hug each other, and the boy heads nervously towards the front. He is trembling as he pushes the heavy doors open. The kid is me, Zach. I'm so scared. I'm not so scared now that I've made a couple of friends, but I know, and I'm hoping the next 5 years will feel, I thought the next 5 years would feel just like the whole 8 years at my elementary school, but I know inside that I'm wrong. I think this is going to be a whole lot better. So perspectives, understanding, support, and open ears for what our children experience.
Hi, I'm Carol Simpson, and I am the mother of 2 adult sons on the spectrum. My older son is a student at UBC in biochemistry, and my younger son does community work as a volunteer at an Animal Protection Society. I'm here today representing Specialisterne Canada. We are a social enterprise, and our business is that we work to enable jobs for people with autism in roles where they can excel with the right support. We provide training, education, and employment for people with autism through collaboration and the sharing of knowledge. Our vision is a world where people are given equal opportunities in the labor market. We want to normalize people with autism working in meaningful jobs. Our goal around the world is to enable 1 million jobs. In Canada, that's 10,000, and in BC, it's 1,000. We can't do it alone. We need to partner with the larger community, the autism community, the business community, and the autism service communities. So what we do is we help businesses see the value of the talents of people with autism. We do not classify the employment as charity. It is a business-driven model. We work with employers to build operational capacity that successfully employs and retains people with autism. So our recruitment process is very, very different. And we prepare people with autism to work in these environments. And we're talking about corporate Canada. We are structured in Canada as 2 separate organizations. One is a not-for-profit, and we do advocacy work there, the employee services around building operational capacity, and I should say the employee services around helping people adjust to working in the environments, and employer services around the recruitment and retention. Our second organization is for-profit, where we hire people on the spectrum and we deploy them at other businesses providing professional services, typically in the field of IT. The competitive advantages that we stress with our clients is that by hiring people on the autism spectrum, they will realize operational productivity improvements. They will lower the recruitment costs per employee because turnover will decrease. The companies themselves will become more innovative and adaptable to the changing market conditions. We improve customer responsiveness. We have higher employee retention, and there is improved employee morale. We find that companies who hire people on the spectrum end up with a work environment that is more respectful and kinder. We maintain that an environment that is good for people with autism to work in is a good place to work for anybody. Our values, we have 4 key values. One is respect, and in the area of respect, we ask that our employers expect the very same level of quality and productivity from their employees with autism as anybody else. The accommodations is that we put people in positions where they can excel. We focus on the strengths that these people bring to the workplace. Clarity, we ask that our business clients provide clear expectations, that they are transparent, that they say what they mean and they mean what they say, and they reduce the amount of sarcasm and irony in the workplace. Accessibility is the 4th, and we have set up operational procedures inside the organizations that allow the person with autism to know exactly who they see over any given issue that may arise in the workplace, so that they never feel alone or unsupported. We have had a major pilot project here in Canada with SAP, and it's international, and SAP is looking at having 1% of their staff people on the spectrum. SAP employs 65,000 people internationally. That is interpreted out here locally, that they have an office here with 1,000 employees, and we're currently moving 7 to 8 candidates into jobs in the Vancouver office. So it's very exciting, the opportunities.
Thank you, and apologies for being late. They closed the bridge just as I was about to get on. So I'm Tony Bailey, I'm a child psychiatrist at UBC, and I've spent most of my life researching autism, but I'm also a clinician. I see children and adults with ASD, nowadays predominantly older teenagers and adults. And when I was thinking about transitions, I really thought of 3 areas that were worth emphasising. One is that most legislation and policy relates to transitions within childhood, getting people into appropriate schooling, transferring from one type of school to another, and then a transition, hopefully a successful transition from the educational environment into the outside world. People then spend 50 or 60 years of their lives with many more transitions, but no legislative cover for it or any particular policy focus, and it seems to me that's a crucial area to be developed in the future. So I'm very pleased that Carol is here, because of course employment is a major issue for the majority of people on the spectrum. I think when we're thinking about transitions, we normally think about what's happening to the affected individual, but within the context of a family, they're surrounded by lots of other transitions which quite often impact very negatively on them. So for instance, siblings will go to university, get married, leave home. Often they might be the closest individual to the affected person other than their parents, so there can be dramatic changes in people's social networks. Parents get divorced, and that can be very stressful for people with ASD who are used to a very stable environment. And of course, I see many families who are very concerned as they get older about what's going to happen to their adult child when they're no longer able to physically look after them or are no longer around at all. And so I think when we think about individuals and families, it's very important to think about the family aspect and not just focus too much on the individual. And then the last thing I was thinking about driving here, particularly prompted by the bridge closing, was about transitions in society. So if we go back 50 years, there were no policies or legislation relating to ASD. Most legislation that different countries do have has come about because of pressure from families. Governments listen to families, they don't tend to listen very much to professionals because they assume we have a vested interest in whatever we recommend. And it's not a static situation. We're lucky that over the last many decades, all the trends have been in a positive direction in terms of providing more support for people with disability and opening up more opportunities for them. But we shouldn't sort of assume that that will always be the case, and most of us are usually politically pretty inactive because politics doesn't tend to impact on us as an individual. We pay our taxes and the roads work and the bridges open and the libraries are there. But it's very different when you have an individual who, at an individual level, is reliant on the state. That's when the interface between politics and the individual is very sharp. And so I think it's beholden on families to continue to be politically active in terms of strengthening legislation and shifting government focus to those areas that are currently underserved in terms of protection for these individuals.
Thank you. Thank you very much all for being here in your opening comments. And as you can see, you've got quite a depth of resources here. So very exciting afternoon. We'll open up the floor to any questions or comments that you have. We ask that you sort of address maybe one, I'm sure you have maybe a number listed in your head, but maybe one at a time, so we like to give as many people an opportunity to speak as possible. So if anybody has starting, so we'll start here, and we'll just pass this around.
This question is directed at Tamara. So how can we as parents obtain more resources from the provincial government? Because funding is always an issue.
I think that's always a good question, and I think Tony's comments about changes always come from parents and parent groups is such a critically important one. I mentioned that in 2010, CLBC's eligibility criteria was changed. Originally, CLBC was only able to serve adults who had a developmental or intellectual disability with an IQ under 70. It was quite clear that there were a lot of families who had sons and daughters who had some significant support needs, but they weren't meeting that IQ cutoff, and it really wasn't serving families well. At that point in time, I actually didn't work for the Crown Agency. I actually worked for the Provincial Advocacy Agency, and I had a really fabulous opportunity to work with a family group who was coming together around that issue. And we had a couple of groups of family groups coming together in different parts of the province, and the Provincial Advocacy Agency also did some work in having like forums, open conversations with family groups once the issue of eligibility itself was identified. And all of the changes within government have always been about families identifying what their needs are and what their issues are. So your question being, what can we as families do? I really can't emphasize enough from the history that we know is true and what I've seen from families in this sector over the last many years. Those of you who have older sons and daughters will remember when our kids were young, there were no services that were specific to our kids, and it was really, really hard to get access to anything. And as a result of a whole number of different advocacy attempts over years where families have come together and they've been really strategic and thoughtful about how they're advancing the needs and the interests, how they're telling the real story of their lives and the needs of their sons and daughters in a compelling way that is both linked to the good outcomes that they need and their families need and deserve, and also, linked to the reality of what it's like for us as families to live with these challenges. It's been through those activities that we've seen change, and families need to identify what their needs are. And then they also need to work together to look at the broader range of ways that we pool resources. There's been lots of ways that families have pooled some of the resources that they do have when they don't feel they have enough to make them something that works even better. And working with private sector, working with organizations like the kind of organization that Carol is at, and looking at all those other opportunities. So there's a range of ways, and my advice is always around family-to-family connection to work on advancing those kinds of needs.
Hi, I'd like to ask Carol a question. I'm very interested in the special intern program, except I'm really confused as to what it is exactly.
is it something, like for my son, for instance, if he was interested in something like that, is it an education program? How does one get into that? And do we need funding? Yeah, it's just so much information in there, I know nothing.
Okay, so what we do is we find the jobs first. So much like with SAP Canada, we've identified the company as our client. And then we go into the organization and we select what we consider to be a pilot that is likely to succeed. And we get a champion hiring manager involved, and we look at the jobs that are in his department or her department, and we go about modifying it to make that job profile more suitable for people on the spectrum. We then go out into the community and source for those positions. And so, for example, with SAP, we sourced through our website, and we also announced through ACT, and we also sourced through MUMS, their network. We get the message out in any which way that we can. With the SAP initiative, we had 75 individuals apply for the positions. And we narrowed those 75 down to 22 candidates that we had come in for one-day workshops. And we had maybe 8 people come in per day, and it's not an interview. Instead, they come in and they build Lego robots, and they program them. Yeah, and we watch them during that day. And the intent is to see them at their very best, which is in a relaxed state, doing something that they actually find enjoyable. And we ensure that the environment is as stress-free as possible. And we see some really remarkable things happen in that day. And we're looking at a number of factors through the day. We also spend time chatting with them to find out what their goals and aspirations are, and whether they feel that the positions that are open are ones that are of interest to them. From that one-day workshop, we then select our shortlist. And that shortlist then goes through, we offer employment to those individuals, and we then put them through a 6-week training program. And that 6-week training program is meant to establish their personal comfort zone, and then to expand that out so that it includes a comfort zone in the context of a team. From there, we then do training that is job specific. And that's the balance of the training. While we do that, we're also building operational capacity inside the organization. So we're meeting with the hiring managers, the team members, and we're providing them knowledge and information and processes to help them ensure that they are supportive of their team members on the spectrum. So that's our procedure as such.
So is it mostly for, sounds like quite highly motivated, really high functioning individuals?
Our target is people who need anywhere from low to medium amount of support. We have ongoing job coaches that support the individual once they're deployed within the organization, and that support continues for as long as what is required, and some people require more support than others. But typically, our hires are not individuals that need a high level of ongoing support. It's more medium level. And we also work best with people who are highly motivated to work. I mean, to do well in a job, you want to be working. And then as far as education goes, we educate our clients that people on the spectrum have had a number of barriers, and they may not have the education that is the typical prerequisite for the jobs. And we have very little resistance to removing that educational barrier, which is pretty encouraging. We emphasize the talent and the potential of the individuals.
So is there an application process, or how would a parent or a person on the spectrum, would they just go to your website and read about what is involved, or is it open to anyone who wants to apply, or?
Yes, we have a questionnaire, and it is it's not a self-eliminating questionnaire. It is a questionnaire that is just gathering information so that we are able to best apply what that person is bringing to the table to the opportunities that we have available. And because we are so new, I mean, we've only been incorporated since December, you know, so that we are currently working with some very large organizations, and we're hoping to expand that out. And you know, many people think that we have a tendency to be strictly IT, but no, that is not the case. You know, so so stay tuned, okay?
Doing your organization, I think it's a long time coming. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We consider ourselves a grassroots organization.
You know what, I think I'm going to leave the microphone here. And maybe you can, when you ask the question in the panel, I would just repeat the questions so everybody can hear it, to save that. So we have one right back here.
Would you organize jobs at individuals' own homes, adapted job sites?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Would you organize jobs, like simple kind of jobs for individuals with autism at their own homes, if they can adapt their home, could become a site where they can, let's say, assemble something or be productive?
So to work from home, to develop sort of home-based
work
learning?
skills at home.
At this particular time, we don't, but we do recognize that there are those people on the spectrum who would do well working from their home. The positions that we typically hire for are positions where there is a need to be in the office environment for at least part of the work week.
If parents would, let's say, open some private business and they want to engage their child in that private business, would you be able to help with the training for that particular business? Would parents be able to get some funding to make those adapted sites?
I can't talk to the funding component, so I don't know. But our intent is to eventually be able to provide those kind of services. There seems to be a huge demand for training individuals on the spectrum to transition into business. And so we recognize that.
This is for everyone who has a child who's either transitioning or has transitioned into adulthood. I'm wondering what services you think would have been
I'm going to jump in on this one.
The question was, what sort of services do people wish they'd been able to access as a kids?
It's more the gap, I think, what was there, because my son just graduated not too long ago, 2012. And the school at Delta Secondary has got a autism support program within the school. It's one of the few ones. That's why we decided that would be the best school for him, rather than when he was going through elementary school. He was in a parochial school, a very small and private school, which had great support for him as well. Actually, his behavioral support therapist that he had was the same one from kindergarten all the way to grade 7. So it was phenomenal, the support that he had while he was there. In high school, I think probably a lot more peer work would have been helpful for him. Academically, he was fine. But the peer challenges were huge, huge, huge.
I'm thinking like not within the school,
Okay.
or nonprofit organization. What services could we have provided? So would it be like more, so when you say peer work, would
I think
an
still even
after-school
with social skills, something that would have been a little bit more. We tried many, many different social skills programs and things along that line, but nothing fit. Nothing to really help prepare for what they were dealing with, all the transitions on a daily basis.
So not just a peer group.
Not necessarily just a peer group within the school environment would have been great, but I think the social skills was where would have benefited Zach, I think, a little bit more. He still has big challenges with that kind of stuff. And I think probably what's the right word?